Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, yeah, to another exciting episode of the JoeBlow Conspiracy Show. I'm your host, JoeBlow, and today I'm rejoined by my regular co-host, Maggot, and guess what we did? Because, you know how we talk shit about Alan Watt, and then, like, we made that YouTube video that got thousands of links? And then Alan Watt got all scared and shit, and he didn't take no more phone calls. Well, it looks like, he's trying to act like a badass, trying to take phone calls and shit, and he probably has, like, a bunch of call screeners. So I said, I'm gonna do something to, shove him back in that little fucking hole of his. What we did is, we got a hold of Glen Kealey, the man who Alan Watt stole all his material from, and, it was so fucking hard, man. We had, like, pretend to like him, and, like, he was talking so much crazy shit. I mean, I'm just thinking this shows how much. Glen Kealey's. I'm like, you listen, he's fucking mentally ill. Like, how fucked in the head does Alan Watt have to be to steal material from a mentally ill person? And this is. I should just let you just fucking begin, let y'all listen to it. But let me go through some of the general points of the discussion. Was he talked about, like, he's saying, like, Alan Watt thief and strip miner of other people's research. What else he said? Like, I don't know. Glen Kealey, he denies that he's a troglodyte or anyway connected to troglodyte Freemasonry. It's kind of neutral. Like, Glen Kealey, you got, like, all the big names, actually. He's had contact with them, like Jordan Maxwell. Let me see, who else? Bill Cooper. I mean, this guy been around, but, like, he was, he'd go through, like, the Desdemona font, Moho discontinuity. Let's see, I don't know, some shit about, like, I just heard it right now, to write description. It was too fucking. It's just really fucked up. That's all I gotta say. This is one of those things you listen once to, laugh at it, and just, like, maybe share with your friends, who like Alan Watt, to fuck with them. And and after we finished talking to him, immediately after we hung up on him, like, me and Maggot start, like, making fun of him. That's probably the best part of the show. Just, at the end, we laugh at this stupid old ass. So, like, if you really hate fucking Alan Watt, I highly recommend that you cut out pieces of the this audio and just, like, make YouTube clips of it, and then, like, pass it around. It'll be good. Okay, let's begin with the show. But before we begin, there's one more thing I gotta add. This whole calling Glen Kealey, even Alan Watt shit, that was all Maggot's idea, so he gets all the credit and blame. So if you wanna, like, say fuck you to somebody, you go tell Maggot fuck off. Cause, like, it came from all his sick mind. Good work, Maggot. Let's start. Here's Maggot. Hey, Maggot, man, how you doing?
I'm alright, yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much cool.
Oh, cool. I mean, you're always too fucking sleepy. Okay, now, today's a very special episode. We're gonna go on the Alan Watt theme. Looks like Alan Watt, this motherfucker, this bullshitter, this Scottish piece of shit pretending to be Canadian, he got some balls and started taking calls again. So let's see if we can shove him back in his little hole. Maggot, you remember the infamous interview I did with Leo Zagami, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very well.
Yeah, thank you. No, why am I saying this? Because we're going to use the same technique. Basically, we're going to act all nice, and a bunch of dumbasses who would actually believe his nonsense, and then later, we're going to start slowly but surely fuck around with him. Okay. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to see the greatest power that English people have are their snide remarks, condescending tone of voice. And they're no, it's true, man. You know that, and I want you to activate those. Okay, use those thousands of years of fucking around with people and turn it on right now.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's call him, and let's see. I'm gonna say the phone number so everybody else can fuck around with him afterwards too. His phone number is 613-258-2893. And if you didn't understand it, just go fucking press rewind and listen to it again. Okay, now let's go call him.
Hello.
No. Oh, Buko.
Buko online. No. Buko the assassin.
Glen Kealey. I have to fucking add this contact. Okay, let's see.
He'll know he's in a fix-up for sure. Buko's on there as well.
Oh, talk louder.
You can't hear me?
No, you have to speak a lot louder. Yeah, you have to raise your voice. Okay, you should still, for he's gonna have a hard time understanding you. You have to speak practically shout in the motherfucker, so he'll understand what you're saying. Okay.
I'll just close down some stuff, see if that makes some difference.
Okay, I'm gonna call him right now. Boing.
Okay. Exciting. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
How about now? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Hello.
Good day. My name is Joe. I'm searching for one Mr. Glen Kealey.
Speaking.
Good day to you. I was wondering, would you happen to have time for a little chat right now with me and my friend Maggot? We run our own internet conspiracy radio show.
You mean you're on air now?
Yes, in a matter of speaking.
What does that mean?
Basically, we're recording right now.
Okay.
You're only on Skype.
Yes, exactly.
I beg your pardon?
So...
Maggot, please speak a lot louder.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now? Yeah. Cool.
Okay, yes, we are on Skype right now. It wouldn't take that very long, only 10 minutes. We're going to specifically discuss the subject of Alan Watt and his research, which is actually based on your research.
There are a number of people in the world called Alan Watt. One of them was a specialist in Buddhism.
Yes, I do remember him.
Is that the Alan Watt you're referring to?
No, actually, we're speaking of a Scottish person who pretends to be Canadian and who runs his own radio show. We have already done our own particular show on him, on his blatant thievery of your fine research material. Remember this, Maggot?
Yeah, sure. We did a hit piece on him. We've got over 1,000 views on it now.
Yes, it was extreme, thousands of views, very popular YouTube video, and we would like to have a sequel to it with the person the victim himself. You, Mr. Glen Kealey.
I don't consider myself a victim. I basically consider that in the world of conspiracy, there are many levels, and some people are miners, while others are quarriers, strip miners, cover the surface only.
Such as Alan Watt.
Alan Watt performs that service for the beginning community.
I got you.
But we are. I mean, as a human being, I understand that you're very. You weren't looking for any money when you're doing this research and putting it out in public. But to this day, Alan Watt still has not given you credit where credit is due. He has not mentioned your name on his show, or even invited you to come on said show.
I don't think that's the most important thing. I think the most important thing for someone who's doing a search of reality is that as many people as possible find out. And there are a number of people that wouldn't understand what I'm speaking of, because they're just not there in their own search. Whereas Alan Watt, although he basically took much of the material, as I understand, from what I had written and in our conversations, he basically is more adept at speaking to certain segments of the population, the beginners, the people involved in religion, that type of thing. So he doesn't really affect me in any way. I just wish him luck, and if he can survive doing what he does, so be it. But it's not my bag. I'm not doing this for the purpose of making money.
Mr. Kealey, you may not
I'm
know
doing
this
because I have lessons to learn. I must observe, analyze, and conclude, and send in my reports. And my reports don't go to any gods or politicians or secret societies. My reports are for creation.
Wow.
Sure.
Eternity.
Mr. Kealey, but there's still one issue that Alan Watt does take your research, and his main aim isn't actually disseminating said research, it is actually to make money off of it. Maggot, you do remember that one particular episode where one of his fans printed a t-shirt with Alan Watt's face on it. What did Alan Watt do?
Sorry?
Isn't it strange that you would have a name like Maggot and be talking against Alan Watt because he's using other people's materials? I use other people's materials. There's nothing new in the world. Everything I write about has its origin in the Bible, or in encyclopedias, or in dictionaries. All I do is put them in context.
But I'm going to say one last thing about Alan Watt. I mean, I cannot listen to his show anymore after I've heard your fine material, because it's such a cheap imitation of the original. I mean, that's I'm trying to get your name out there, aren't we, Maggot? This is one of our main goals right now. We run our own website, www.oomunu.com, and it's a BitTorrent tracker, and we have at least 3 of your audio on there, compiled by Maggot himself. Is that correct, Maggot?
That's true, yeah. We just wish there was more of them, to be honest. It's like 10 times better than Alan Watt's stuff. Watt is just an old, rusty robot, and he's been repeating himself for years. He's gone into like advanced stages of delusional paranoia. So it's really quite pathetic.
If you want my material, all you have to do is write to me, and I'll send you some material, discs that you can use on air, whatever, from my...
Okay, cool. Do you have any audio material?
I beg your pardon?
Because we've only got about 3... We've only got about 3 audio files of you.
Well, the last workshop that I recorded was in May 1998, on the 19th of May. Have you got that?
No, we don't. And
no.
It's not at all. I tried looking for other of your. I've only found 3 of your interviews, and that's it. That's why we were hoping to do
Yeah.
an interview right now with you, so that it's not only me and Maggot. There's so many other people. I mean, there's so many other Joe Blows out there who are thirsty, for your knowledge.
Well, the reason I wrote the Kealey papers while I was doing the search was basically to give people a sense of where my head was at and what I was looking at during the years leading up to discovering a code that opened up the door for a much more profound discovery. As you know, the Desdemona typeface is a pictorial code, and it tells a story. And once you grasp the story, then you know basically the premise of the things to come. And with that premise, you go back and reread much of the things you've read before, and everything becomes much clearer. That the story is basically about making a super slave prior to the destruction of the surface of the planet, and having the DNA in storage so that after the passing of Alder Amin, the next second son, that they would be able to repopulate the surface of the planet.
Yes, I'm familiar with this particular theory. But there's one question which I don't think has ever been asked of you, or maybe within all the audience we've been able to get a hold of, we haven't heard the answer to. How did you come to this realization? When did you have your moment, like as if you were sitting under a tree, like Newton, and an apple hit you on the head, that, oh shit, I can read like secret messages using Demona font on like everyday printed materials?
The important word is regal. And regal means repo man, the repossession of all that was given to the northern hemisphere via Marco Polo.
Okay.
And when regal first came into my life, I was 5 years old.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't understand what it was all about, but I was sent on a search. And that search was very much the same as is described in the Bible when Mary and Joseph leave Jerusalem and 2 days later realize that Jesus is not with them, and they go back to find him and find him in a temple teaching the rabbis, the teachers there, about what he knew. And when supposedly asked by Mary in the allegory of the Bible, when he was asked, didn't you understand that your father and I would in fact be worried? And his response would be the same as mine. What do you mean? I am about my father's business. I'm basically carrying out the plan that was asked of me in my DNA before I was born.
Okay.
When you are born in modern times, you come from one of two places. Either a crypt from a dead person, that's why they call them mummies, and the DNA is used to manufacture a new version of a person through something called epigenetics. Or you come through the bloodline that starts off with this laboratory-made person, and you are one of the 4 generations thereafter. Otherwise, you're not born. So, since we all come from a world of genetic engineers, they call themselves intelligent designers, we have to go back and find out exactly what was asked of us when the DNA was assembled to make us as a single person going out into the world. And that's been my task all my life, and I didn't quite grasp the context of it all until I got involved with the building of a major project that led politicians to ask me for a bribe, and I went to court and I laid charges, and I got charges laid against 8 senators, 8 cabinet ministers, 4 senators, 8 cabinet ministers, and the Prime Minister's chief of staff, among others. And when I saw that the media was participating in the cover-up, the politicians were participating in the cover-up, the police were participating in the cover-up, I decided that I had to stop my regular life and go about a journey that I hope would lead me to a moment when I would overstand instead of understand.
Oh, shit. Overstand. I heard the same thing from Jordan Maxwell. Remember that, Maggot?
No, that was me. That was me reinterpreting Jordan Maxwell's...
Jordan Maxwell. I've spoken to him a number of times.
When was the last time, sir?
Years ago.
Oh, okay.
Probably 12, 15 years ago or so.
I can imagine how distasteful it was for you to speak to such a ruffian such as Jordan Maxwell, an obvious thief and disinfo agent. Did you have any, I don't know how to put this, bad vibes from the first moment you ever contacted him?
My only problem with people like Jordan Maxwell and Alan Watt is that they seem to be grounded in a religious environment. Either that's where the money is, or that's where they're getting their information. Religion, to me, is basically a military wing. That's why that word sounds a lot like religion. And from there, they're getting a portion of the information, but certainly not all. They're getting it directed to them through a group called Ecclesiastic Freemasonry.
Yes, which is connected to Troglodyte Freemasonry, which we've studied this through Outlaw Journalism. The owner, Andre, wrote a fine article concerning this issue. There is one thing I'd like to ask you, another personality within the conspiracy community, Alex Jones. He's universally condemned as a disinfo agent by many different spheres or groups. Well, my question to you is this: whose disinfo agent do you believe he is specifically? Who does he specifically work for? I have
no direct knowledge of Alex Jones, although through the code, I don't suspect that I would be interested in meeting him, because his coded name, Alex Jones, is suggestive that he's involved in manufacturing a slave that is male-female. The name Alex, le in French, the female and masculine. And a 10 with the X at the end of Alex, and Jones, which is basically the one. I don't suspect that he'd be of any interest to me, but I have no personal knowledge of him.
But one more issue concerning Alex Jones himself. He seems to, one of his techniques, which reminds me of Troglodyte Freemasonry, is that he seems to create a network of fellow travelers, such as Alan Watt, who comes on a show regularly. So many other, I don't even want to mention their filthy names.
Even that's Freeman on his show.
Freeman, of course, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Or
it just says any idiot on there.
I know.
Well,
exactly.
if you're going to be on air on a mainstream or semi-mainstream program, you have to be part of the system, or they wouldn't let you on. They have no interest in having your information disseminated if you're telling it like it is.
Right.
So,
about Troglodyte Freemasonry.
There are only a few people who sneak through occasionally. I think the interview that you probably heard was something that was done by a guy called Desert Owl.
Yes.
On an interview basis, such as you're doing now on the telephone. And it's simply because they snuck it through, I guess, that it got out into public. My interest has never been the media. My interest is getting down to the bottom of this before I die. I'm 68 years old, and I suspect every day is more and more a challenge. And I would like to live until I'm 101, but I'm not certain that will happen. So my task is to learn. And what I've discovered is that there is a way to make a quantum leap in knowledge very much along the lines of the story of Enoch and Methuselah. Methuselah appearing in the allegory called the Bible about genetic engineering and extending life. I believe that the information that was used for performing that feat of extending life through genetic engineering is recorded on a stone tablet and is in the hands of the Mormons. And I believe they didn't get the whole story. They only got half the story. And the other half is on a stone, the other half of the same stone, and it deals with something much more substantial, which is the unified theory of the universe, and where we all come from, and where we're all going eventually as eternity marches on. This is only a sidestep in eternity, and we're basically only here to bring back experiences that we live to creation. If we do that, we live forever.
Okay.
If we choose instant gratification, as Masons and religious people do, of getting something special in this life or immediately in the life thereafter, we're missing the boat.
I understand.
So,
there is one. You're such a gentleman, Mr. Kealey, that you don't want to denounce these criminals. But let's talk about someone who you.
I don't consider myself a gentle man. I consider myself pretty strong-headed.
Okay.
Gentleman suggests something that I am not.
Then I apologize. There is one fellow Canadian conspiracy radio host. His name is Gary the Spaceman Bell. Are you familiar with his research?
Never heard of him.
I'm amazed. He's on AM 640 Toronto Radio.
Well, that's one reason why I wouldn't listen.
Okay.
If somebody's on AM radio, why would anybody want to listen? That belongs to the system.
Oh.
They don't allow people to go on. They allow their people to go on.
Yes.
That's AM. AM basically means mother. It's the one that is the cow that is feeding the system.
Okay. But I have to. We're having such such an enjoyable conversation. But I have to mention this. It seems as though that many of Alan Watts' supporters have taken upon themselves to denounce you, and they're making up all these lies. I'm going to have to ask you these directly. One of them is that you actually are a troglodyte, and you are part of, you yourself are, or at least a member, troglodyte Freemason, or somehow connected to troglodyte Freemasonry. Would you?
I'm the one who brought up the word troglodyte many years ago. I'd never heard it before. As a matter of fact, the only place it had been used in the last 100 years, as far as I know, was for the name of a type of bird. But in doing research into old dictionaries, I even surprised librarians by telling them that no, a troglodyte was basically a Roma or gypsy or Cro-Magnon person that was employed in the Moho discontinuity and had access to the surface of the earth and was doing functions on their behalf.
It's sort of similar to that H.G. Wells book, isn't it? The Time Machine. You had the
not certain I remember that. But I know who H.G. Wells is. You know,
I think he's speaking of the Morlocks. The Morlocks lived under the ground, and the Eloi lived above the ground.
It's not under the ground. That is misleading, because what it is within the Moho discontinuity. The Moho discontinuity is beneath the sediment that is beneath the plates of the earth. So anything that happens in the surface area or in the sea or whatever on the surface of this planet, such as is about to happen, a nova, will cause everything to tumble and destroy much of the planet in one shot. It doesn't affect these people. The Moho discontinuity is like an eggshell around an egg. The egg, in this case, being the core of the earth and the mantle of the earth, mantle being divided into upper and lower mantle. And then above that is the Moho discontinuity. Above that is the sediment. Above that is the ocean and continents. And they're just floating around on top. And they could all be mixed in together and make a nice stew out of everything on the surface, but nothing would occur within the Moho discontinuity, the mantles, or the core. The Moho discontinuity is made up of the material from which all living things were made of and died.
So it's like the primal soup, is it?
The DNA of everything that was the salt of the earth. When it dies and works its way down into the water, from creeks down to rivers, down to gulfs, down to the ocean, it adds salt to the sea. Should it be allowed to remain in the sea would die. And so would life. By the physics of planets, what happens instead is once the sea has a certain percentage of salt, somewhere between 7 and 11%, the rest of the salt is pushed down past the sediment and removed from the water. Originally, oceans used to be fresh water, if you go back to the beginning. That sediment is now educated salt at the bottom that makes up what is known as basalt. The BA comes from trying to give you an insight into what you get from a college or university as a first degree. You get a BA instead of being an AB, which is an aboriginal. So BAs is like the second level. Once that hardens into a material which is called SEMA, it then is 32 miles thick and can be easily tunneled in order to make around the entire planet a network of roads and highways leading to certain communities based upon what we know as Buckminster Fuller's geodesic dome structure. So it's not intended, as Buckminster Fuller had intended, to contain something within the dome structure, because in this case, that's the core of the Earth, and nothing goes there that basically survives as is. But what it is an outline of a highway network that exists below the sea, below the sediment, and below, of course, the continents. In the future, we will live on this planet an induced destruction. We are beginning to live that, and it basically began in 1998, and it's working its way up to 2058, but because of Masonry's coded language, you always have to give 4 or less 4, so instead of 58, you have to take into consideration it may go to 62. 62 is marked in our world by the next coming of Halley's Comet, which happens every 75 years.
Yes.
And by that time, they have a plan, because they know that this is happening. They have a plan to have destroyed the northern hemisphere, leaving a cap on the northern top of the Earth that will be put in fallow. There will be no ice there, of course, because when you have a nova, it's because you're overheating everything. And we're just waiting now for the spark.
Yes.
They are going to induce a spark. I suggest probably through a particle accelerator causing a collision.
Such as like the one they have at CERN in Switzerland.
And in Chicago.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Is that like
one in Stanford in California, and there's a few of them around the world. They'll basically feed off each other. But the idea is to light up the acetone, which is a byproduct of vineyards, at a stage past vinegar, and it's basically the basis of plastic explosives. And it will explode in such a manner as to light the coal seams of the northern hemisphere. So try to imagine that everywhere there's coal on this northern hemisphere, it will begin to burn. As it burns, it creates caverns. As the caverns are filled with ash instead of stone, they will collapse. They will light up through a process which was described in Gomorrah, Sodom and Gomorrah, through explosions coming from down below and starting fires on the surface of the earth. Once it's gone through this process, there will be no life, as we know it, between the 8th degree latitude north and the 53rd degree latitude north, with the exception of 2 visor-type additions to the cap. If you think of Sherlock Holmes's hat, for example, it's got a visor in the front and a visor in the back. Well, southern Ontario of the time will be the visor in the front, and the back visor covers its way down to the Gobi Desert on the other side.
Okay.
That part will remain. But everything where the U.S. is, where most of Europe is, and especially around the water, whether it be the Gulf or the oceans or the Great Lakes, they'll all be gone.
Okay.
So in order to gather up what Marco Polo brought from China, the technology and the improvements that have been made, we've been living through a process called technology transfer.
Yes, I remember you mentioned this.
Everything's gone south,
yes,
further south.
Mr. Kealey, there's one thing I like. I'm kind of a, how you can say this, a salt of the earth kind of guy. On a lot of conspiracy radio shows, they like to mention how to prepare for whatever cataclysm that's going to befall us. Some people are saying get guns, other people are saying buy gold. I want to know from Mr. Glen Kealey, what can we do? Is there some business opportunity or some economic way that one could think of protecting themselves from the coming cataclysm, other than gold? What do you think will be have lots of worth in the coming dystopic future?
Absolutely nothing if we let it happen.
Okay.
The big advantage that we have is this is not prophecy. This is a business plan. Mm-hmm. This is a plan by people who are using colony collapse in bees, climate change in weather, technology transfer. All of these code names are all dealing with rego, which means pick it up and bring it back.
Right,
Go there. Amen in Latin, in French, amen means bring it on. Ramen means bring it back. Whoa. So we're living in the Ramen period. And that's why at the end of religious ceremonies they always say amen, which means bring it on. Bring it to them so they can bring it back. Well, we could stop this entire thing from happening if we stop for a minute looking for instant gratification, such as money and how can I make a buck off of this, and instead deal with the root cause of the problem and the only possibility of preventing it. These people, troglodytes, are only an interim name for those people who traveled beneath and above. Their original name is in the dictionary, and it's based on a code, and it's Neanderthaler. And what it really means, Neand, is the word dean. You know what a dean is in university?
Yes.
He's the expert in a field. So it's the dean of thalers. Thalers is the German word for dollar coins. So the dean of money is creating this. So don't look for money to solve your problem. He owns it all.
Okay. But what do you personally...
And he lives underground in the Moho discontinuity, as would a mainframe computer today after his evolution in time.
But I was wondering, what does Mr. Glen Kealey himself do with all this immense knowledge? Are you preparing in some sort of way, or are you just basically waiting at home, trying to educate others with this research?
What I have discovered is that there's a way to stop this. And it's based on a rule of physics of 12 around 1. If you want perfect protection in life, don't get an orange that's not protective enough. Get physics, look at it. When they wanted to send a space vehicle up to a rock in the solar system that had no gravity, they couldn't use boosters to keep it from falling down because there's nothing really to push against. And what they did was they took the satellite and they put it inside a ball and blew it up. So the satellite was inside. Then they surrounded that ball with 12 balls of equal shape and size, giving the context of 12 around 1 used in the Bible for the disciples and Jesus, that kind of thing.
But how can one apply this in their own everyday life using the principle of 12? Should I get, like, if I go to the grocery store, should I buy, like, 12 beers? Or
no,
like,
what you should be looking for is 12 people of like mind to you.
Okay.
Where you can be one of the 12 to any one of them, and all 12 can be around you as the one.
So you become a covenant, ant of the coven, because the coven's got 13 members in it.
Yeah.
Have you heard that theory about humans?
Witches knew about this from a long time ago, and I'm not a witch, so I don't know all of the details about what they did.
No, I studied some of it.
In fact, witches were burned at the stake because they had certain knowledge. But by now, it's left the realm of witches and gone into science, and it's known as one of the principles of scientific knowledge. So you don't have to be involved with any co-cult, which is the real word occult. It's the second cult, religion being the first one. And co-cult basically means the religion of the unicorns, or the female males, or the manufactured slave. There was a time when there were two genders. They had originated from a single clan mother who was a hermaphrodite, and then moved on to the stage of two genders. Now we're living a world of genetic engineering. And in trying to manufacture the perfect slave, they've determined that the skull and bones of a male are appropriate, but the exterior veneer of female is better equipped for giving birth and for marketing purposes. So they've manufactured human beings that you look at and you would believe is a woman, when in fact it's a combi. It's a interior male. That means the spine, the brain, the main organs, the heart, are male. They stop the birthing process in the middle, move it to an incubator, put it under a bombardment of either nuclear activity or chemistry, depending on what they want done. And from that point on, they change the final appearance of the body. They can do it from a woman on the inside to a male on the outside, or a male on the inside, woman on the outside.
So in everyday language, that would be basically you're talking about transsexuals, or trannies, or chicks with dicks.
No. Totally different. Transsexuals are people who got stuck in the middle. I'm talking about perfectly manufactured persons who, on the outside, look like female, but on the inside own a testy for the purpose of fertilizing an egg that will come to her in a jar.
Ugh.
And when she inserts the egg, she will give birth to a baby. And as long as she does what the controlling master wants of her, she will receive ways of reproducing herself as clan mothers used to do. But
sounds like something Alan Watt would be into.
If she starts acting up and thinking that she's going to run the world herself, the system has that way of closing it down. It simply refuses to give any more access to beaker babies, they call them. But it's not as much important when it's being done on this planet. But the beings of dollars have a plan, and that plan involves terraforming and taxing and controlling every rock in the universe. So when they send out one of these slaves to a rock some light years away from here, and that person then begins to terraform and create a colony, she will be able to inseminate her eggs that come out of a beaker, and will start a colony. Being in contact back with the earth, they will then determine what that rock should be used for, whether it's mineral exploitation or for some labor of some kind that needs to be done there, or it's basically insufficient in value that they will just say, well, have a nice rest of your life, we're not sending you any more eggs, and she just dies out, and that's the end of it. So there's going to be millions of potential possibilities in the solar system and in the universe, and they can't afford to send a bunch of pilgrims on a boat who basically set up a colony and then tell everybody on the other side to go to hell. They're going to run their own show, as during the
Is
revolution.
it possible that Alan Watt is one of these created creatures? Can he actually be a woman in the inside, but a man with a beard on the outside?
I would say it's possible today for anyone you meet to be one of these people.
Especially Alan Watt.
Not especially any more than most people. The preferred model, you have to remember, will be a world leader. And look around. In the world of world leaders, the first stage to getting to the world leader is being married to the world leader.
Oh, Mr. Kealey, I got to ask you
The second
about
one
this.
is becoming the world leader.
Right.
Themselves.
You know that America has a black president now. It's called Barack Obama. And he's been dodged by accusations of homosexuality. And if you ever looked at his wife, Michelle Obama, I thought she had a dick. I mean, honestly, she looks like a maggot, man. Doesn't she look like a tranny?
He does. Yeah, there's a couple of really dodgy photos of her. I think there's one with a blue dress, yeah, really skin-tight dress, and just like, I don't know, it looks like a bloke basically around the midriff.
Yeah, it looks like she has a penis showing through it.
Yeah.
She'd be one of the...
The women that I'm speaking of belong to a group in Freemasonry's extended family called the Sea. SEA, and they're everywhere in the same way as the men who are involved in Freemasonry are either called the Earth or the Sky.
Okay.
The Sky, you know, all the names that end up with SKY are part of that. The sea, you'll find words like Chelsea.
So you're saying everybody from Poland is basically one of these he, she-he's?
Well, Poland would be a headquarters because it's a religious headquarters of the Vatican.
Okay. There's one other issue concerning these horrible Alan Watts supporters. They have accused you of being in a mental institution. Have you ever been treated for mental illness in your entire life?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
If it happened in my sleep.
Okay. Just to dispel another lie. And you've never taken any psychotropics or mind-altering drugs in your entire life?
Not in my awakened moments. I have suffered through periods of alcoholism, not to the level of alcoholism where you have to belong to a group. I was more of a drunk. You know, we didn't go to, you know. So, and it partly what it was, it's something that is put into your program when you don't want to do the things you've been programmed to do.
Right.
They have to kind of egg you on, and one of the ways they do that is through that gene that's modified to make you want to drink.
More susceptible to alcoholism.
Yeah, when you're drunk,
yeah,
you
makes you more
do things that you wouldn't do sober.
Okay.
Sure.
Within your long life, another question which no one's ever asked you: what have you done professionally? What was your job? Have you had a...
My training was in typography.
Oh, okay.
In printing, which basically led me to understand characters and fonts and that kind of stuff. And I never actually worked in that field, but that was my training.
What did you
I worked in the broad printing world without being directly involved in printing.
Oh, for which publication specifically?
It wasn't publications. I was a salesman of printing equipment.
Okay. Such as presses or inks?
Presses, folders, cutters, typography systems, everything that's used in the world of printing. I just didn't want to be around the noise and the smell and the ink that got you all dirty. So I basically took the knowledge that I had and went into marketing and sales of printing equipment of one type or another, and eventually presented to the financial community a concept that printing was changing, and it was changing because of the movement towards electronics and computers, and what needed to occur would be the building of a city within a city that would be wired up for communications, that would provide central services for printing and duplicating and mailing and all of those things within the building itself. And I approached builders and told them that they were basically only making about 10% of the possible income from a building by only dealing in real estate. That what they should be dealing with is an intelligent building that would supply services, and then they would at least quadruple their income from each piece of real estate that they own, if they in fact took the trouble to spend an extra 5% at the building stage and include a fiber optic, coax cable, twisted pair communications network on a 10-foot grid throughout the entire building, as we do today with electricity.
If they only had listened to you. Since you were a salesman, you must have been a well-traveled man. You've traveled the whole width and breadth of Canada, correct?
At least 7 times, from my memory.
Is there a specific story that had a profound effect on you? Some chance encounter with one other fellow human being?
What was more the discovery that I made during my journey across the country was that my life was being managed. That from that moment at the age of 5 with my encounter in Regal, that I was being pushed from one experience to another, not for it to become my lifelong dream, although many times I thought I had arrived at my lifelong dream. I was presented with opportunities in education, in religion, in business, in everything you can imagine in life, family, relationships. And then once I had grasped the lesson, I would be dragged out and moved on to the next one and dragged to the other one, always thinking that these things were coincidences. And then I started to realize that there was a pattern going on.
Yeah.
And that pattern had a master. And that master, if I had to describe it today, would be something like the Essenes of the Bible, where they're in the background, don't do much, but they can become insiders on a moment's notice and drag you down a certain direction.
Sir, this sounds exactly what Alan Watt did to you. I vision Alan Watt as a pupil of these said masters, and they told him, go to the person with the most knowledge, which is Mr. Glen Kealey, and I believe he used you.
Drain him.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he has told me that his contacts were the Sufis.
Okay, yes. We've heard your Sufi power connection.
One day he called me out of the blue, and I said, I haven't heard from you for years. He said, well, I've been in India. And I said, how did you go to India? You know, the last time I saw you was in northern Ontario. You had a truck that had no floor in the front. Your feet would hang out.
Like Fred Flintstone.
How could you afford that? And he said it was paid for by the Sufis.
Oh.
So
Does he have a dog?
Yeah, that's what he had just come back.
Have you ever seen him have how should I put this, an unusual relationship with his dog? Let's say overly attracted to his dog in inappropriate ways?
Close relationship.
I don't think that's
he always
fair that we speak like that. Alan had a lady friend he was living with at the time. They broke up shortly thereafter, but they had been living together for a while. He had been married. His links are to the Scottish banking community. Before he came here, his wife was the daughter of one of the vice presidents, I believe, is one of the things he told me in time.
So obviously he himself has Freemasonic links, though he denounces Freemasons all the time.
Well, it was always the thing that seemed to me odd. That why was, first of all, he calling me on almost a 2 or 3 time a week basis in order to listen to me talk, and then why is it that he bought my papers at the time, the Kealey papers, and later sent me a copy of his material, and as soon as I looked at it, I could see copies of the things he had taken out of the paper.
That bastard.
Is that the cutting through the matrix?
It just didn't make any sense to me unless he was part of the team of people trying to drag me from one place or the other.
I know that your website in the past has received over 16,000 hits per day. How big is
that's
your...
what it was when they cut it off.
Right, until they made you change the name. But how many people actually purchase your Kealey papers? Are they still offered?
Yeah, they're offered as archive material, subscription. There were originally 22 papers. The first one was not produced by me and is sold out, was basically a trial. And from the second paper to the 21st, I produced them myself. And people who send a donation to the Canadian Institute for Political Integrity so that I can continue the research, this time through nature and animals. I'm on a farm, and I've got sheep and goats and a donkey and
Are you
cats
speaking
and dogs,
to the animals?
chickens. I beg your pardon?
Are you speaking to these animals?
Not I'm as much that I'm speaking to them, but I'm watching them.
Okay, so they're speaking to you.
And they seem to communicate their personalities to me in a manner that I can compare to people that I know. For example, the donkey, which is the model for the Democratic Party, I've noticed as soon as a predator comes to the neighborhood, the other animals move towards its direction, but it hides behind the other animals and makes a lot of noise.
Right.
So it doesn't do anything. It just makes noise. And that to me sounds like the Democratic Party or a union.
Do you have an elephant for the Republican Party?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't live well in the northern climes, so can't help.
Okay.
But chickens and turkeys are very much like the IRS. You know, as soon as something comes to the gate, they want to know.
Right.
And they run.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they're keeping records of everything everybody has and what they're doing, and so.
But there's
anyways, in the wintertime, they become food for the cats. So
yes,
they're missing the point.
Especially the chicks.
If they're writing their history, they've forgotten the main point.
There's one more personality within the conspiracy community, which I don't believe anyone's actually had you speak upon. Bill Cooper
called up one night to speak with my wife, and I spoke to him as well. My wife was a whistleblower in Ottawa on the free trade negotiations, and Bill Cooper spoke to me. I thought I didn't know and hadn't heard of him. What bothered me the most was not the time I was speaking on air, but more the commercials, because he seemed to be pushing guns and gold.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
It kind of bothered me, because those are basically the things that I despise the most.
So you have neither guns nor gold.
I beg your pardon?
You have neither gold nor guns.
No. I have much more power than that.
Okay. That is knowledge.
Creation's knowledge, not creator's knowledge. There is a difference. Creator signifies a person. Creation is an everlasting system. And when I speak to people and they don't want to know, my go-away line is always, well, it's your life, my eternity.
Wow, that is pretty profound. Wow, I'm gonna just tell you right now, I will steal that from you. I'm gonna start using that too.
You're welcome to it.
Thank you
the
very
more
much.
people that understand or overstand the difference, the better.
I want to overstand it, because I don't want to be understanding too much of anything.
Yeah, don't go too far with it, because the Jesuits use the term verstand. So you don't want to verstand. That means direct. Vers in French means towards. That's why you have a university. It's the single direction they're sending you on. And the direction is it-Y. Y basically being a two-in-one human being, male-female.
I have to say, I'd like to thank you for this show, interview, and coming on the JoeBlow Conspiracy Show. But there's one thing I'd like to say, that I personally believe that the conspiracy is actually Jewish, and because everywhere I go, I see like dirty little kikes everywhere. Like
you're terribly wrong. If there is a surface participating group, they would be called Judean.
Yes, I remember. Jewish means
Judean includes the word Dean.
Yes.
And it basically refers to the group around Jordan, the king of Jordan and the queen of Jordan. Would be the context.
It's Jordan Maxwell's name.
And what about Jordan Maxwell? Maybe he actually took his name from Jordan.
Could be.
It's a Masonic name, isn't it?
I asked him once, and he said that was the name he had chosen, but he didn't give me.
Yeah.
Well, he's a pretty shady character, I don't trust this.
I like Alan Watt, he seemed to me to be a great gatherer of material.
Thief.
But uses it for the wrong purpose.
A scavenger.
Yeah, he's like a catfish,
In Scotland, they call them quarriers, because that's strip mining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mentioned at the beginning, yeah.
Well, I like Maggie, is there anything you'd like to say before we stop the interview?
Not really. I think we covered everything. Let's see. There's a lot of
Judeans backward. I'm sure you'll find your way over to Japan and the Taoists and then the Buddhists and back into India with the Brahmin. But the key word for all of you to remember is the word Polaris. We are living the age of Polaris. Polaris happens to be the northern star. It's not a star. It's three stars that shine close to each other and make it look like one star. But in 12,000 BC, it wasn't the northern star. Vega was the northern star, and by 7500 AD, Alder Amin will be the northern star. So everything you have that's in the system is linked now to the word Polaris, and that includes police, politicians, hola. Whenever you hear hola, in Spanish it means hi.
Poland.
La being the feminine principle. RIS is IRS, so you can track RIS from Sri Lanka. You can move it through to Krishna. You can bring it all the way to Paris and into the IRS in the U.S.
Polaris is also a missile, isn't it?
And it's basically a time frame in the age of the solar system based upon the movement of the northern star. And everything is linked to that. We are going through the phase now where the female males, which are called unicorns, are coming out of the bedroom, coming out of being the wife of important people to being the important people in their own right. You have
after the males done all the hard work.
Meir in Israel. You had Margaret Thatcher. You've got the current president of Argentina, the former recent prime minister of New Zealand, and in waiting in the United States, you've got a couple of good candidates there. The wife of Barack Obama has hell in her name, and I'm sure that she can be Michelle. But you also have a much closer possibility, and that's Hillary Clinton.
Oh,
with
she's
her daughter, with her daughter called
she's still in running.
Chelsea.
Maggot actually lives near Chelsea, don't you, Maggot? You live in what do you call it, Cheltenham?
I live in a really dodgy sounding town called Cheltenham. So that's Cheltenham.
Is that in England?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, have that British accent. And of course, the
gives me away.
Is a major contributor to the Polaris plan.
Man, I never trusted Maggot. You know, from the first day I met him, man. I still don't. I never met him in real life. Sorry.
Well, if you really want to insult a maggot, you call it priest.
Okay, priest.
A priest.
It has
I've called myself a black pope a few times now.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Glen Kealey, for coming on the show, and we'll be making sure that Alan Watt, that that scoundrel, will be getting a copy of this audio. And I bid you farewell and a fine day.
You too.
Yeah, thanks for the end.
And remember, you don't need to be so nasty. Just cool it a bit.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I'd like to, let's have a little moment with Maggot before we finish the audio. Maggot, man, what are your opinions of our interview we've done?
Of the guest?
Yes.
It was interesting. He seemed to go off on a tangent once or twice, but it was fine. I got most of what he's saying. I got the gist of it.
I didn't know what the fuck he's talking about, dude, man. It sounded like all a stream of bullshit, you know. Fuck, dude. You a lot smarter than me, man. I was trying to keep fucking laughing. I come on pressing the fucking mute button. I was like, giggling. I heard you fucking giggle too much.
I heard you.
You didn't press the fucking mute button enough.
Because it's easy for people like with minds like mine. I can say like meaningful bullshit, you know, and it sounds alright at the time. But you know, when you actually look back on it, that's a load of crap.
I know.
But it just means he had IQ. It just means he was clever.
Man, that's all, man. You know, and on top of let's go through the qualities that this asshole Glen Kealey got. Like one of them, he's been mentally ill since he's 5 years old. 2, he's an admitted alcoholic. 3, no, worse than that, man. He used to work as a salesman. What the fuck does a salesman do? Basically, he runs around and talks shit all day. I mean, like,
yeah.
So you know, this Man, if he was an old man, dude, I was gonna man, Maggot, wasn't I, compared to everybody else, wasn't I really fucking nice to him?
Yeah.
I could have been a lot fucking meaner, honestly, especially with him like his.
He did talk a lot.
Yeah, he did, man. Especially hear his news research. He's saying no. I don't speak to the animals. The animals speak to me. Man, that's that's fucked up. You know what, Maggie?
Researching the animals.
I want you to go get a turtle, and then like wait for it to start speaking to you, okay? And come back to me with your research.
I talk to the birds hanging out the window.
It's just, man, is there anything you want to say, man? I'm just fucking shocked. I'm still. It'll probably take me like a few days to really start laughing at him.
Yeah, I can't think of anything to add, really. I was going to mention about the Rothschilds, how they own all the vineyards and stuff, but the thing is, I know what he's saying, and it might sound like total bullshit, but I hear that stuff all the time of people coming off on informants and stuff, like crazy old men just come up to me and say this wacky stuff, so, I don't know if there's anything to it.
I'll say the one
it does sound a bit wacko, but...
I'll say the one good thing, I was able to sneak into lots of anti-Alan Watts shit. That was, I congratulate myself on that. You know?
That was great. And he had to go underneath my username. It's like,
he hated you. He didn't like you just because your name was Maggot. He's like, this Maggot. Yeah. He probably, you know what he did? Yeah. I'll tell you right now. He took your name. He did some Glen Kealey shit to it. So I don't know what the hell you can get from Maggot.
He said it's priest. It's like,
I know.
There's loads. The G series. There's loads of reasons why I called myself Maggot, and it's mainly just to put people off. It's mainly so I get loads of insults, because I find you learn more from people when they insult you, because you hear one insult once, and then you go, I heard that one. What else you got? You know, if you go around, I don't know, lovable friendly rogue or something like that, then you're not going to get the same sort of response.
Man,
so.
I don't believe any of this etymology bullshit. I'm an amateur linguist. I had to bite my tongue so many fucking times when he was speaking. Man, that was such fucking bullshit, dude. I mean, it was like, I've never been exposed to that much bullshit in my entire life. Like, I wish you could see me around. My whole body's covered in it. I'm just like dripping wet from this bullshit. Man, let's cut the fucking show. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the JoeBlow Conspiracy Show, and Khuda Hafiz. See y'all, guys. Come around. Bye-bye.
وقتی برات نخواد خدا پشت هم میاد درد و بلا